There, I said it. Hear it. Feel that small electric jolt. That jolt is a truth check. Either you keep bargaining with excuses, or you choose to become someone who moves. This video isn't an idea you'll like and forget. It's a challenge you'll either meet or keep avoiding. If you're listening, you're already over the first barrier, attention. Now, use it. Listen closely. Doing is not a personality trait reserved for a few. It's a muscle. It's a set of choices you make every day when the comfortable voice whispers later and you say not today. The world admires the outcome, the book, the business, the result, but it respects the person who showed up again and again when showing up felt small, boring, or risky. You can be that person. You can be the one who acts. Let's be blunt about why you don't act. It's cheap to name the enemy: fear, confusion, perfectionism, exhaustion, the seductive comfort of small comforts. But call it what it really is: the lazy logic of avoidance. You tell yourself you need the perfect plan, the perfect hour, the perfect mood. That story keeps you safe from failure and from success. The truth is uglier and more liberating. There is never a perfect time. The person who wins is the one who chooses action over comfort repeatedly. Now imagine your life a year from now if you do nothing differently. Picture the same habits, the same inbox, the same half-started projects. Feel the small regret that starts like a stone in your shoe. Then imagine the alternative: 1 year of steady action, not heroic leaps every day, but consistent micro moves that add up. Which picture wakes you up? Here's the real test. What does your inner voice say when you think about starting? If it says, "I'll wait until I feel ready," you're listening to the wrong voice. The one who acts says, "I will begin and I will adjust." That shift from waiting for readiness to declaring readiness and then polishing while you move is the pivot. It is the core difference between thinking about a life and living it. Let me give you a framework you can use right now. It's brutal in its simplicity because complexity hides action. Choose one project, not 5, 1. Break it down into the smallest meaningful step. Make that step absurdly small, so small your resistance can't find purchase. The step should be something you can do in 15 minutes. Do it. Then do the next small step. Rinse, repeat. Action compounds. The compound interest of momentum is more powerful than another week of planning. You need to talk to your fears like a coach, not a jailer. When doubt shows up, name it. Say, that's fear of looking foolish. When you name it, it loses authority. When you pin a label on the voice that says, "I can't," you can treat it like data, not destiny. Napoleon Hill taught that your thoughts become things. That's not mystical, it's practical. If you feed the story of impotence, you'll harvest impotence. If you feed the story of motion, you'll harvest motion. You decide which garden to tend. Remember this: clarity follows action, not the other way around. Clarity is a reward that arrives after movement. When you start, the fog clears because problems become tangible and solvable. You learn what works by doing. You learn what matters by testing. So stop waiting for clarity as if it's a precondition. Use action to create clarity. One more thing about perfection. Your first attempt will look raw. That's normal. Good. Raw is where growth is visible. If you polish the first draft until it gleams, you've robbed yourself of learning. Make the first attempt messy and fast. then iterate. This is the difference between creators and procrastinators. Creators ship. Procrastinators refine until the idea dies quietly in a folder. Now let's talk about identity, the quiet engine behind your choices. You act from identity, the stories you tell yourself about who you are. If you think, "I'm not someone who finishes things," you will prove that identity. If you start telling a new story, "I'm a person who starts and finishes," your decisions will align to that story. Change the words you say about yourself. Habit follows identity, and identity is negotiable. You can edit it. Try on the narrative of a doer. Speak it. Behave as if, and your brain will find evidence to support the story. Discipline is not punishment. It's a currency you spend to buy a life you value. Discipline is not about denying joy. It's about choosing the joy of results over the temporary pleasure of escape. Real freedom comes when your habits support the life you want, when you no longer debate every small choice because your systems decide for you. Build systems that reduce the need for daily moral heroics. A system takes the decision off your shoulders and places it into the world. A scheduled block of focus, a ritual start to the day, a fixed hour for your craft. These scaffolds make action inevitable. I want you to take a risk right now. Audit your day. Where do you surrender your life to autopilot? Where do you scroll when you could create? Identify the two biggest time sinks. Don't judge yourself. Observe. Replace one of those leaks with a 15-minute action toward your chosen project. That's it. 15 minutes. Not an avalanche, a pebble. Do it consistently and watch the pebble become a boulder. Let's deal with failure, because failure is waiting at the door of anyone who acts. Here's a secret. Failure is information. It's feedback. When you treat failure as an enemy, you stop learning. When you treat failure as a teacher, it becomes a stepping stone. The question is not whether you will fail, it's how quickly you will get back up and use what you learned. Speed of recovery matters more than the absence of failure. Move fast, fail cheap, and adjust. Energy is a real currency, and it deserves attention. You can't act effectively on fumes. Sleep, movement, and food are not optional, they're strategic tools. Short bursts of physical movement prime the mind for work. A cold shower or a brisk walk will clear fog and summon courage. Don't treat energy habits as extras. Treat them as infrastructure. A well-tuned body makes a decisive mind. Now, a word from someone who understood human capacity. Earl Nightingale said, "We become what we think about." That's not just a quote on a poster, it's an operational truth. If your head is full of excuses and what-ifs, expect a life filled with them. If your head is full of proximate, achievable actions, expect a life built from those actions. Quiet the background noise. Feed the signal. You might be thinking this all sounds too simple to be true. Good. Simplicity is underrated because it demands courage, not cleverness. The world rewards what is executed, not what is theorized. The person who shows up daily, doing small things, overturns mountains over months. Before we close this part, let's make a pact. Decide, out loud or in writing, one micro-action you will do in the next 24 hours. Not some grand promise, a single specific, measurable move. Call that client. Write 300 words. Build the first 15 minutes of your product. Walk for 20 minutes and think through one decision. Commit to it. Do it. No excuses. Now tell me, what single micro action will you commit to in the next 24 hours?
Write it in the comments right now and describe what's stopping you. Brutally honest. Your comment is not a performance, it's a contract with yourself and a signal to the people watching that you mean business.
Part 2. You felt the first jolt, that tiny electric shock of possibility. Now we move inward. If Part 1 forced your feet to the edge, this part will teach you how to walk. The single biggest barrier between thinking and doing is what's happening behind your eyes. Your beliefs, the quiet script you replay, the voice that narrates your days. Change that script, and you change the movie of your life. Start with this truth. Beliefs are not facts. They are repeated thoughts that gained authority through repetition. They sounded convincing because you heard them enough times. That means you can change them the same way, intentional repetition. But don't wait for motivation to rewrite your mind. Motivation is fickle. You rewrite belief with action, ritual, and evidence. Do something tiny that contradicts the limiting belief repeatedly until your brain has no choice but to update. Listen to your internal dialogue like a detective. Who is speaking? Is it the critic who loves safety? Is it the internal parent who learned to prioritize other people's approval? Name those voices. Give them nicknames if it helps. The perfectionist, the pleaser, the worried one. When the critic pipes up, respond like a rational partner. Thanks, I hear you. I'll do this anyway. You don't need to silence fear. You need to treat it as commentary, not instruction. Here's a mental experiment you can use today. Close your eyes and imagine the version of you who has done the work for a year. What does his/her morning look like? How does that person handle setbacks? What small habits anchor their day? Now, reverse engineer one habit from that person that you can adopt in the next 3 days. This is not woo-woo visualization, it's tactical rehearsal. The mind prepares the body. When you rehearse the small steps mentally, the real steps feel less foreign. Athletes call this visualization. Entrepreneurs call it planning. Great teachers once called it focused imagination. Use it. Your subconscious plays by different rules than your conscious mind. It's a pattern seeker and a conservator of energy. It will default to old habits unless you give it clear, repeatable instructions. Don't try to willpower your way through complex choices. Simplify and automate. Use cues, rituals, and tiny rewards. Want to write every day? Put your notebook and a pen on your pillow each morning. Your subconscious will notice the cue. Want to stop doom scrolling? Move your phone charger to another room. The environment is a silent commander. Design it to support action. Words matter, especially the words you use about yourself. Replace "I'll try" with "I will." Replace "I'm not ready" with "I will begin and learn." The phrasing is a lever. Napoleon Hill and Dale Carnegie understood that belief and language shape results. They just gave it older names. But language without action is theater. Use stronger words, then back them up with small, unglamorous steps. Speak as the person you are becoming, and then behave like that person for 5 minutes a day. Behavior will catch up. You need an accountability engine that actually works. Public promises can be useful but fragile. Better is a layered approach, a small public commitment, a measurable micro goal, and a private ritual that seals the deal. For example, tell one person what you'll do, set a 15-minute timer, and then mark a checkbox in a visible place when you finish. That checkbox is a dopamine micro reward, and it trains your brain to prefer completion. Progress tastes better than promise.
Now about emotions. They are not enemies to be avoided. They are signals. Fear tells you where your edges are. Excitement points to potential. Anxiety indicates an unresolved problem. Learn to decode these messages quickly. When anxiety spikes, use two tools: breath and action. Take 60 seconds of controlled breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6. Then take one honest small step toward the work. The breath calms the nervous system. The step creates data. Together, they break the paralytic loop of feeling and inaction. Habit formation is not mystical, it's mechanical. The cycle is cue, routine, reward. If you want a new routine, choose a consistent cue and a tiny repeatable routine, and define a small reward. Make the reward immediate. A check, a 5-minute break, a tiny celebratory gesture. The human brain loves immediate signals. Long-term results are built by stacking tiny immediate wins over weeks and months. Don't underestimate the accumulated power of a 5-minute ritual repeated daily. Decision simplicity accelerates action. Reduce daily friction by setting rules for yourself. For example, do not spend more than 10 minutes deciding what to do in a work block. Use a default task list. If you can't decide what to work on, do the thing that scares you most. It's usually the thing that moves you forward. Your future self will thank you for fewer decisions today. Systems beat motivation because they remove the need for moment-to-moment heroics. Resist the trap of identity theft. You are not your past failures. You are not the sum of every aborted project. Those are experiments. Reframe a failure as essential research. Ask 3 practical questions when things go wrong. What worked? What didn't? What will I try next? Then set a 5-minute action to test the next iteration. This method reduces the emotional weight of failure and converts it into forward motion. You also need to learn to steward your attention like capital. Attention is limited and precious. Clear it from noise. Use blocks of undisturbed time for deep work and shallow tasks for everything else. Protect a morning window for your creative or strategic work when possible. If mornings are impossible, find your slice and defend it. Put a visible sign or a simple "do not disturb" routine in place. People will adjust when they see you guard your focus as if it were a fragile treasure, because it is. Now, for a counterintuitive hack, impose tiny deadlines. Deadlines force choices. They create urgency without drama if they're short and specific. Set a 48-hour mini deadline for the next step on a project. That creates momentum and turns hypothetical intentions into scheduled realities. When the deadline hits, ship something imperfect and learn. Then set the next tiny deadline. Momentum loves deadlines. Finally, build identity anchors. These are rituals that prove to yourself who you are. Maybe it's writing the first sentence of work at 7:30 every morning. Maybe it's a 5-minute review of wins before bed. These anchors accumulate into a personality you recognize and respect. When the anchor occurs, your behavior aligns because you've given your future self a predictable script to follow. Here's a concrete plan you can use today. Choose one limiting belief you hear regularly. For example, "I'm not creative," or "I never finish things." Find one tiny behavior that contradicts that belief and commit to it for 7 days. Make the behavior stupidly small. 10 minutes, 1 paragraph, 1 small deliverable. Place an immediate reward when you finish. Track it visibly. After 7 days, evaluate and scale. The goal isn't heroic change in a day. It's undeniable evidence that the belief was a lie. Before you go, do this one exercise. Write down the exact words you say to yourself when you fail. Be honest. Now cross out the worst phrase and replace it with a constructive alternative. Put that new phrase on a sticky note where you'll see it during work. Every time the old voice rises, read the new phrase out loud and take one small step. That's the practice of internal coaching. It trains you not to depend on mood, but to command it. Now tell me, what belief are you ready to challenge, and what tiny behavior will you use to prove it false? Write it in the comments. Be specific. Be ruthless. Your comment is the first public mark on the path from thinking to doing. Part 3. Decisiveness is a habit you can build. It's not some rare gift belonging to boardroom giants or athletes. It's a muscle that strengthens every time you make a clean, quick choice and act. If your life feels foggy, it's often because you've developed indecision as a default strategy, a slow leak of possibilities because each small choice gets deferred, debated, and diluted. Today we fix that leak. First rule, make your threshold for action tiny. Indecision thrives when the perceived cost of a step is high. Shrink the cost. Promise yourself a micro-commitment so small it's ridiculous to refuse. 5 minutes, 1 sentence, 1 call, 1 sketch. The first resistance is always the loudest. When you lower the barrier, resistance will often sputter and fall away. That's how momentum begins. Second rule, adopt a do or defer rule. Decide quickly. Either you do it now or you schedule it with a clear time and a consequence. If you defer, pick a time within the next 48 hours and tell one person. A vague, "I'll get to it," is permission to procrastinate. A concrete, "I will do it on Thursday at 10 o'clock with a witness," creates reality. The combination of scheduling plus social accountability is brutally effective. Initiative is different from waiting for permission. People who act don't wait for the green light, they build the intersection. You have limited signals from outside and unlimited reasons to wait, so treat permission as optional. Ask one question instead. What is the smallest useful thing I can do right now that will move this forward? Then do it. Initiative is not reckless bravado. It's calibrated action based on available information, not on perfect understanding. Discipline is quietly heroic. It's less about willpower and more about pre-commitment. Make the tough choices when your will is fresh, so your tired self won't be tempted later. For example, block your most creative hours for your craft and treat that block as non-negotiable. Use tools, timers, app limits, product blocks. Commitments are anchors in a sea of distraction. When you tie yourself to a routine, you can weather days you don't feel like doing the work. A practical structure I recommend is the 3-move rule. For any project, identify exactly 3 meaningful moves you can take this week. Not 30, not an indefinite list, 3. These must be moves that produce value independently. One could be research, one could be a prototype, one could be outreach. Each move should be time-boxed and measurable. At the end of the week, review what shipped, what failed fast, what requires iteration. This compresses decision space and forces action. Another tool, the if-then commitment. It's powerful because it sidesteps willpower by binding behavior to a trigger. If it's 7 a.m., then I will write for 20 minutes. If I finish a work block, then I will take a 10-minute walk. The brain likes rules.
When you convert intentions into conditional commitments, you reduce the friction of choice. Create friction for the things that steal your time. Want to stop wasting evenings on worthless scrolling? Install a blocker and move your device out of reach during focus blocks. Want to stop saying yes to meetings that dilute your week? Add a 15-minute buffer between meetings as a rule, or only accept meetings that have a clear agenda. Design your life so that the default is productive. Habits compound when they are anchored to identity. The underlying question you must answer is not, "What do I do?" but "Who am I?" Decide, are you a person who starts and abandons projects, or a person who finishes and learns? The answer will shape your daily scripts. To accelerate change, use public identity actions. Tell a friend, or post a simple update. Public stakes sharpen private resolve. But don't overperform. A modest, consistent public commitment beats dramatic, short-lived declarations. Let's talk about momentum and the 1-hour rule. Momentum is fragile. You must protect its early hours. When you begin a work session, commit to staying for at least 1 hour. Use a timer and a ritual start. A glass of water, 5 deep breaths, opening the same document. The 1-hour rule protects you from shallow starts and trains your mind to enter a zone quickly. Over time, your brain learns that when you start, you stay, and staying becomes easier. There will be days you bomb. That's inevitable. The difference between people who persist and those who fade is how they parse those days. Adopt a recovery ritual, a short checklist you run after a failed session. Example, note what blocked you, pick one tiny fix, set the next 15-minute session, do it. This ritual moves you from passive regret to active iteration. The faster you convert failure into cheap experiments, the faster you succeed. Use scarcity to create focus. Time box your tasks. Give yourself short, intense windows to solve or produce. Parkinson's law is merciless. Work expands to fill the time available. Short deadlines force focus. Combine time boxing with single tasking. One task, one window, no multitasking. Your brain is not a machine for juggling. It's a machine for deep sequences of focus. Single tasking wins. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Get it fast and get it specific. Share early drafts, rough prototypes, or blunt offers with people who will tell you what needs to be better. The faster you get real reactions, the faster you can improve. Avoid echo chambers that only applaud. Real progress comes from discomfort and honest data. Now a tactic for stubborn projects, the 5-minute launch. When a project feels too heavy, commit to 5 minutes of visible progress. Open the file, name the document, write the first line, send one introductory message. 5 minutes often stretches into 30, and 30 into 2 hours. The brain hates novelty, but loves a pattern. The first 5 minutes convert novelty into pattern. Another underrated lever. Make public micro-promises. If you say you'll post an update by Friday, you will design your week around that promise. Public micro-promises leverage social alignment and make you choose action over the comfort of delay. But temper them. Don't overcommit. The goal is to create a steady drumbeat of small public deliverables. Decision fatigue is real. Protect the early part of your day for big choices. Reserve your energy for things that matter and automate the rest. Use defaults, a default morning routine, a default task list, a saved set of email responses. When you reduce the number of decisions your brain must make, you preserve decisiveness for strategic moments. Learn the art of abandoning without shame. Not every project deserves your lifetime. A decisive person knows when to stop a bad experiment quickly. Use clear exit criteria before you start. If X metric isn't achieved in Y weeks, pivot or stop. Then honor the rule. Stopping is not failure if it frees up resources for what matters. You need courage to act, but courage is cheap if not trained. Train it with repeated small risks. Make one small public proposal. Ask someone for feedback on an idea. Call a client you fear. Each small act of courage builds a neural pathway that makes the next act easier. Courage compounds. Finally, take ownership of the narrative of your life. The people who act are storytellers who choose the plot. They script the daily scenes that lead to meaningful arcs. Don't outsource your plot to other people's expectations or cultural scripts. Write the scenes you want. Small, decisive moves that create momentum and meaning. Now it's your turn to show up. Pick one of the rules above and use it for the next 3 days. Make a micro commitment. Schedule it and report back publicly. Your comments are evidence. They mark the path. Tell me in the comments, which one micro rule will you adopt for the next 3 days? And what is the real reason you might resist it? Be specific and raw. Your honesty is the starting point of your courage. Part 4. You think focus is something people are born with. That's a lie you've been told to excuse the reality. Attention is a cultivated skill, and every lost hour is a choice. If Part 1 forced you into motion, Part 2 retooled your inner engine, Part 3 sharpened your decisiveness, then this part hands you the tools to keep moving without burning out. Focus is not glamour. It's the quiet work that wins championships. Let's get tactical. First, understand your attention like currency. You wouldn't waste money paying full price for junk. Treat your attention the same way. Audit a day and mark every hour with a value: high, medium, low. High value hours are for work that creates leverage: writing, designing, negotiating, creating. Low value hours are for admin, email, scrolling. Protect the high value hours like a VIP meeting with your future self. Book them first. Make them non-negotiable. There's a reason top performers hoard morning light. The early window is often the clearest air for deep work. But if mornings are not your zone, find your peak and defend it. Clear a 2-hour block at that time and make a ritual to start it. A single repeating action that signals the brain it's go time. A particular playlist. A short walk. Opening the same doc. Rituals remove friction and usher you into flow. Flow is a real measurable thing. It's not about pretending to work. It's about achieving a stretch where time dilates and output multiplies. Flow needs 3 things: a clear goal, immediate feedback, and just enough challenge to stretch you without breaking you. Set micro goals for your work blocks. Finish one subsection, solve one problem, draft one email sequence. Immediate feedback can be a visible checkbox, a line count, or a small test. When the brain sees progress, it releases motivation. Design your work in bite-sized goals that allow the flow state to appear. Eliminate the small, insidious interruptions that drain momentum. Every interruption has a cost: the time to do it, plus the time to refocus. The more you measure that cost, the less likely you are to accept interruptions without a rule. Create a rule: no notifications during deep blocks. Use a physical signal: headphones on, a hat, a sign that tells others you're in a focused window. Train people around you to respect it. The only exception should be real emergencies. Everything else waits. Batch similar tasks. Our brains hate context switching. Writing 3 emails in a single block is exponentially faster than starting one, doing something else, then returning. Batch calls, batch administrative work, batch creative sprints. Use the same environmental cue for each batch, so your mind can slip into the right gear faster. Over time, batching creates rhythms that scale your capacity.
Use short, sacred deadlines to create urgency without drama. A 4-hour sprint is a clean container. Intense focus, then a break. Use a timer, not because it's punitive, but because constraints force clarity. When you know a window ends, you prioritize ruthlessly. Parkinson's law will either work for you or against you. Set tight windows and make it work for you. Guard your energy like a general guards supplies. Attention without energy is fragile. Hydration, movement, sunlight, sleep, these are not optional extras, they are infrastructure. Build micro breaks into every 2-hour block. 5 minutes of movement, a glass of water, a breath. These tiny rituals reset your brain and protect sustained focus. If your body is starved for rest, your attention will be the first casualty. Learn to use productive boredom. When your mind wanders, don't immediately reach for distraction. Practice small intervals of bored reflection, a short walk, a blank page, a breath, and let ideas come. Boredom greases creativity because it forces the mind to rewire itself toward interesting problems. Many breakthroughs happen when you give your brain space to explore without noise. Design your environment to support the work you want. This is not about feng shui, it's about reducing decision costs. Keep only the tools you need in reach. Remove the phone from the desk or face it down in another room. Use a dedicated workspace, even if it's a corner of a table that's reserved for your craft. The physical world cues the mental state. Control the cues, and you control the triggers for action. Master the art of the quick reset. When focus breaks, use a 3-step reset. Breathe for 60 seconds, write down the distraction, return to the task with a 1-sentence plan. This short ritual prevents the distraction from hijacking your agenda and clears the path back to the work. The act of writing the distraction off gives it a shelf so your mind can return to the task without nagging. Know when to dive deep and when to let go. Not every hour needs to be a fight. Schedule shallow work, email, quick calls, admin, for low energy windows. Use your high energy windows for strategic creation. This alignment reduces friction and makes you more productive overall. It's not about grinding all the time. It's about matching effort to capacity. Use forced scarcity when you need to accelerate. Shorten the time available. Remove options. Put a visible deadline on the board. Scarcity creates focus because it forces prioritization. When everything is possible, nothing is urgent. Decide what matters and remove the rest. Cultivate a culture of immediate small wins. Each completed tiny task is a signal to your brain that you can finish things. Celebrate micro completions. Cross a line, mark a checkbox, stand up and stretch. These mini victories create momentum and lower the psychological cost of the next action. Protect your attention against false productivity. Busy work often feels like progress, but rarely creates leverage. Ask 2 questions about any activity. Does this move the needle toward my goal? If yes, is there a faster way to get the same result? If the activity fails either test, deprioritize it. Focus is the art of saying no to good things, so you can say yes to the few that matter enormously. Train your focus with progressive overload. Start with short focus sessions and lengthen them over weeks. Like lifting weights, you build capacity by increasing demand gradually. Begin with 25-minute sprints and add 5 minutes each week. Your attention will grow stronger, and you'll experience deeper work with less struggle. Use attention anchors, small rituals that retune your focus before work. It could be a 5-breath sequence, a single sentence you read aloud, or a ritualized setup. Open the same document, make a single bullet list, choose the first micro goal. Anchors are reliable. They tell your brain the mode you are entering. Over time, they trigger focus automatically.
Finally, protect your long-term attention by defending your margins. Overscheduling leaves no room for reflection, learning, or rest. Reserve weekly margin time for reading, skill practice, and unstructured thought. Those hours are investments that compound. Without them, your work becomes narrow and reactive. Now, make a small commitment. For the next 3 days, pick one 2-hour high-value block and defend it like a soldier. No meetings, no notifications, no excuses. During that block, use a simple ritual to start, one micro goal, one timer, and one reset rule. After 3 days, report back. Tell me in the comments, what is the single distraction you will remove from your highest value block, and why does it keep returning? Be specific and honest. Your answer is the first act of defending your attention. Part 5. This is where the work becomes a life. You've moved from the spark to the systems, from belief to habit, from indecision to momentum, from scattered attention to focused practice. Now it's time to integrate, to make action the pattern that runs beneath everything you do. Integration is not a final exam. It's a set of choices you make every day so the person you are building becomes the person who lives the life you want. Start with a simple truth. Consistency beats intensity. Explosive bursts feel good and make for inspiring stories, but the quiet weight of steady practice is what changes your life. A single day of heroics does not create a career. A deliberate year of work does. So plan your life so that small wins are inevitable. Design systems where your future self can succeed easily. Fixed rituals, simple rules, and environmental cues that nudge you toward your priorities. Make it easier to act than to avoid. Revisit your identity script. You are not merely performing actions, you are authoring a self. Each small choice writes a line in your story. When you say you are someone who finishes things, you will make finishing the default. This isn't theatrical, it's strategic. The brain loves consistency and will align to a repeated narrative. Choose the narrative that serves your goals and reread it daily. Mentors like Dale Carnegie taught that interpersonal influence grows from genuine clarity and courage in action. Your ability to act affects your relationships and your opportunities. People notice consistent action even when it's unglamorous. The person who reliably finishes the small things is soon entrusted with bigger things. Your visible consistency builds trust faster than any speech or promise. That's leverage. Your inner discipline becomes external credibility. Now let's talk growth loops. Integration requires feedback loops that are honest and fast. Do not wait months to see if something works. Create weekly reviews. Assess what shipped, what learned, what to change. Use metrics that matter. Progress on habits, outputs, conversations started, doors opened. Your review is not a blame session. It's a tuning session. You want to be precise and generous with yourself. Celebrate the wins and treat the misses like experiments that reduce uncertainty. Guard your margins vigilantly. Growth without margin becomes brittle. If every hour is optimized and scheduled, you'll lose the raw material for creativity, relationships, learning, and rest. The paradox is this: to be more productive, you must protect time for non-productivity. Read a book with no goal. Walk without a podcast. Sit in silence and notice the edges of your thinking. These margins are where insight happens and where your energy replenishes. Your environment is a strategic asset. Build a culture around you that reflects the habits you want. Surround yourself with people who value action. Seek those who do more than talk.
Limit exposure to chronic complainers who drain momentum. That doesn't mean cutting people off. It means managing your input. Join groups that ship work. Spend time with those who show up to the small daily practice. Your environment will either reinforce or sabotage your patterns. Choose it intentionally. Resourcefulness becomes more important than resources. People often wait for perfect conditions: money, time, clarity. Those waiting for the perfect storm will wait forever. The world rewards the resourceful, the ones who start with what they have and make it stretch. Learn to reallocate small pockets of time, to trade luxuries for investments, to repurpose fragments of your day into forward motion. Start now with what you can control. Practice deliberate escalation. You don't need to leap into extremes. You need to extend capacity slowly. Set progressive goals that stretch you a little more each month. Increase the time you protect, the difficulty of tasks you take on, the scale of projects you ship. Progressive overload works for muscles and attention alike. Small, consistent increases compound into real capability. Cultivate resilience by reframing setbacks as pivots. When a plan fails, treat it as data. Ask, what did I learn? Who can I ask? What will I change next? Replace shame with curiosity. The faster you convert disappointment into an iteration, the faster you move toward what works. Remember, speed of recovery is the true metric of success. Teach what you learn. One of the fastest ways to solidify a skill is to explain it to someone else. Coaching, mentoring, even writing short notes about your process forces clarity and reveals gaps. The act of teaching distills knowledge into usable patterns and reinforces your identity as someone who acts and helps others act. It's also how you build influence without sacrificing substance. Honor the small rituals that anchor your days. A brief morning setup, a 5-minute midday review, a short evening inventory. These tiny practices are the glue that keeps you steady. Rituals are not rigid rules. They are reliable handrails that catch you when things go sideways. Build a handful that feel authentic and repeat them until they no longer require willpower. Be purposeful about scaling. If your projects grow, design structures that maintain quality without burning you out. Delegate intentionally, automate repetitive tasks, and document your processes. Build teams or partnerships that share your standards for action. Scaling without structure is a recipe for chaos. Structure without vision is a cage. Balance both. Remember the power of small, public accountability. Share a micro goal with someone and set a clear check-in. The light of social attention sharpens resolve. But be selective. Public commitments should be real and aligned to what you care about. Use them as fuel, not theater. Keep learning with a beginner's mind. Expertise should not become an excuse for arrogance. Stay curious. Read widely. Talk to people who know more than you in certain niches. Cross-pollinate ideas. A broad input set fuels creative synthesis, which in turn produces interesting outputs. Protect your health like the engine it is. You cannot create sustainably from depleted reserves. Sleep, movement, nutrition, and social connection are not optional extras. They are the foundation of high-level performance. Schedule them. Treat them as non-negotiables. A well-tended body makes a decisive mind. Now, let's make this practical. Commit to a 90-day integration sprint. Pick one identity anchor, one habit to strengthen, and one tangible project to ship. Define weekly checkpoints, a simple metric, and one public accountability move. Keep the goals ambitious but realistic. After 90 days, evaluate and scale. This is your season of visible change. Treat it like a campaign, not a crusade. Before we close, listen to a fierce truth. Action is not a final state you reach and then rest on. It's a practice you renew. Every day asks you to choose who you will be. The work is ordinary, persistent, and boring sometimes, and that's why it is powerful. Greatness is often an accumulation of invisible days. Now I want you to declare one thing. What is the single habit you will integrate into your life for the next 90 days that proves you are a person of action? Write that habit in the comments and explain, in one raw sentence, what fear or excuse has kept you from doing it until now. Be precise. Be brave. Your words are a public promise and the raw material of change. If this landed for you, and you want more practical sprints and candid coaching like this, subscribe and hit like.